I've just come into the bus stop fracture geo here because I noticed that we didn't set up the names correctly. If I come here, visualize that, you'll see that the names is just piece. That's because I put this in the wrong place. So the piece attribute, this is for fracturing per piece, and it's looking for a glass attribute which isn't there. So this should be name, okay, which is the default, and then the prefix is glass. So set that to glass, okay, and let that do its thing. And then here now we should see that name attribute is glass, well, contains glass, okay. And I did the same with the wood as well. So here it should be name and the prefix, and then the prefix should be wood. There we go. So if I come here now again, we see we've got the name which has wood. Good. So go back to here. So that will just pass through, you know, this will filter all through again. And then I'm going to, let's put a box around these just like I did earlier with them. And call this constraint props. Maybe give it a fancy color, maybe purple. Okay, and then abd configure to set up our constraint, not the constraint, but the actual the properties on the pieces. Okay, so just like before, I'm going to use a bounding box to pin these bits at the bottom. So let me just set up that bound the values just exactly the same as before. They were 6 by 0.2 by 6, and that gives us a box at the bottom there, and then we'll visualize it in a moment when we set up that value. Okay, everything else there is fine. So for let's start with the glass. So you can either, if you've got a group here, you know, we should have a glass group, or maybe I didn't make it, but that doesn't matter. What you can do, if you notice, we've got all these names here, and if, well, they're taking a long, I can't scroll through this for some reason. Ah, there we go. So you can see we got the name there which contains glass. So what you can do is just select your attributes and just do this kind of if statement. If the name contains glass anywhere, then, you know, do all this stuff underneath. Okay, so it's just a quick way of making a selection. So any name attribute which contains glass with anything before or anything after, that's what these asterisks are for, then do all this. So for the glass on the collision shapes, I'm just going to, we'll turn this on because I think I'm going to change it for another one. I tend to, just for a rule, if I set up some kind of attribute on some of the pieces, then I try to set up that same attribute on anything going into the simulation, because otherwise, you know, if you have it on one and not on another, then a default could override them, and, you know, it's better just to be safer like this. Okay, so glass, and then down here we've got physical attributes, and we've got some presets that are handy. Just turn that on to glass. The density I'm going to drop considerably. I'm going to drop it to 100. Okay, because I found that the glass was just kind of breaking under its own weight. So I'm just going to drop that down to 100 and turn the friction up. Turn the friction on, I mean. And that's it for that. Then for the metal, okay, we'll do the same thing. So add name is metal. Okay, so this will grab the big metal and the small metal pieces actually. Okay, and then so just like before, we'll turn on the collision shapes and the collision padding. I'll just leave that at 2, the other one at 0.01. And then let's set this to metal. We'll do steel and turn on the friction. I'm going to turn off the bounce. I don't like to have too much bounce with the metal pieces. Cool. And then for the wood, do add name is wood. Okay, and then for this one, let's try, I'm going to try convex hull, but you might want to use box as well. But I'll leave it on convex hull for now. I'm going to set to 001 and then have wood for my defaults there. I don't know, balsa wood, I'm not, you know, it doesn't matter too much about the difference between all of these, but what's important, I'm going to drop the density on this as well. Okay, just to give those constraints a helping hand to help them hold together. One thing I forgot to do, so on the metal here, we need to set up that pin and use bound. So you can see there the red shows us that these parts now are pinned as well. So those extra little, that circle piece at the bottom. Okay, so we've got all that. So let's drop our ABD bullet solver. Okay, and then so the constraints we can just plug straight in. So it's a bit weird. So if you remember the glass, on the glass we have the what was it called, the ABD connected faces. Yeah, remember we set up the where was it, connected faces thing. So I found that this doesn't work if my geometry is packed, right, which it will. Coming out of here, the geometry, everything is packed now. If you know, a quick way to check is just by making selections. You can see I'm not selecting polygons there, but at this point it isn't packed. Okay, and I found that the deleting the polygons for the glass, the inside polygons, doesn't work if you pack it, even if you unpack it afterwards. I'm not sure why, but what we can do is just simulate the we'll be simulating the proxy geometry from here and then applying the transform to this. So this doesn't need to be packed geometry going in here. It still works anyway. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that like that. And now I'm going to take this as well. Okay, and merge these together. Okay, so this will not be simulated, and this stuff will be simulated, right? And we also want, sorry, it's getting a bit tangled. Let me get rid of this. No, I'm also going to grab this because we need the transforms here, right? So I need to go before the time shift, and I'm going to grab this and merge it with the actual, this is what will actually be simulated, and plug that in here into the proxy geometry there. I mean, if I press Alt, just to try and clean this up a little bit, we've got some wires crossing over, but I'm trying to do it as neat as possible. Okay, and now you might notice that here we've got the metal twice. So let me just drop a delete, because the metal at this point is not animated, right? If I move that, you can see it's not moving, but we need that animation. But at this point, it is. Okay, so even if I delete it here, the constraints are still there and they're connected up to the same name attribute, so it doesn't matter. So I can just come here, okay, and on my points, because this is packed geometry now, I just do add name is metal, and there we go. Okay, so these, so I'm bringing in the metal here because I need that animation. I'm deleting it here because it doesn't have any animation. If I left it animated going through here, then every frame these constraints are going to be changing and it'll do weird stuff in the solver, right? So there we've got the metal moving, constraint set up to hold everything together. We've got this geometry which will be transformed by this geometry. Okay, so this is what will be simulated. One more thing we need to do, okay, because this metal, I don't want that to be actually simulated, as I said. We need to set up an attribute to tell it to do that, right? So on the points, right, for the metal is, but the big metal, let me just check for that name, was, let me see, the name, big metal, all lowercase, big metal with a star. So I want it to be, I add active, so it's not going to be active, so I'm going to set that to 0, and then I add animated is 1. Okay, so because I've set that up on there, I need to do the opposite on everything else, right? So we need the small metal group, we need the glass, oops, group, I add name glass, and the wood as well. That name is wood. Good, okay, and then yeah, we need the opposite here. So for this stuff, I do want it to be active, but I don't want it to be animated. Okay, so that, I believe, should be us ready to simulate.